Well, welcome. Thank you so much for coming out to the Rockford Public Library, and happy last day of Pride. We did it! Today, we are going to be letting Mr. Andrew here chat with us about queer history. But before we get started, my name is Amber Kressel. I have worked here since 2003. Became a librarian. In 2013.
When did you become a lesbian?
Became a librarian the day I was born.
Her word is on the back of the book.
Don't worry, we'll get there. And it has definitely been my dream to not only marry queer history, but marry the library and make sure that the stories get told. So I think it's wonderful that we have an amazing author over here who's going to chat with us. Housekeeping out of the way, I want to let you know that the bathrooms are around this corner, down this hallway. Use whichever bathroom you would like. Today the talk is going to go for about 45 minutes. Andrew's going to talk. Then he's going to walk us through the exhibit space here, maybe not like physically through it, but tell you what's there. If you haven't had a chance to see it yet, it will go down tomorrow, so tonight is your last chance. And then he will be signing books in the local history room at the tail end of the evening tonight. If you didn't see, there are stickers on your chairs. If you didn't get a sticker, there are more over here by the elevator. Thank you, Mr. Patrick, showing where the stickers are. And then if you hadn't had a chance yet, hi guys, we are getting more chairs. We'll get some for you. If you haven't had a chance to check out our Hill podcast, we did do a special podcast episode with Andrew, and where he was also promoting this event, thank goodness. So I think it kind of worked if you got to try out that podcast for a bit. So again, my name is Amber Russell, and I've been a librarian here for quite a while. And I met Andrew. I don't know if I was your client first as a lawyer, or if you became like a local history client first. I'm not sure how this happened, but
I'll see you in court.
yes. But we met a couple years ago, and
That's right. We actually lived in around 2 years ago today.
Yeah, and have been good friends ever since. So I do want to take time to do a little reading from Andrew's book. I'm going to read the foreword, which is written by myself, and then we will get on to Andrew taking the show away.
Taking it by force.
So forward, thoughts on a Forest City Yester-Queer. The book in your hands is the first of its kind for Rockford. When I was a queer girl growing up on the west side, I wasn't able to find books or stories about local queer adults and their lives. Now, as a queer adult, I realize that's still true. Until now. Finally, with Andrew's contribution, queer Rockfordians can see our own mark on history. Andrew's perspective is enlightening and relatable as he's able to reflect on national level issues while giving us an understanding on how our town experienced these issues. Andrew introduces us to everyday Rockford queers, from a transgender Civil War soldier to a badass gender-bending realtor and the local celebrities found at our iconic Rockford gay bars. Andrew wraps all of these stories up and gifts us a beautiful beginning to Rockford's historical pride movement, a history everyone should know. So thank you very much for being here tonight, and
So while Amber goes to work on some chairs, I just wanted to lay a few, as a lawyer, I'd like to lay a few ground rules, okay? So the first one is this. This is an interactive presentation. I'm not going to go to reading from the slide because there are only 5. The second thing is if you have questions about the book includes what's its contents, how it was made, why did I undertake this provision when I have a husband who graciously let me abandon him for 2 years. Those are all up for it. Raise your hand and we'll move through it. Let me introduce you to myself a little bit. So as people have said, my name is Andrew Mertzenich. Yes, that is my last name. Good luck pronouncing it the first time. Usually takes about 3. Perfectly fine. I've heard it all. But I am a lawyer here. I do LGBTQ plus estate planning. I also help with real estate transactions. So if you're planning on dying or buying a house, one of which is more likely than the other in this economy, give me a jingle. I also care a lot about history. I'm from and of Rockford. I was born actually Rockford Memorial, but I ended up growing up at North Main in Auburn. So if you know Greenwood Cemetery area, that is right where I grew up. And I remember riding bikes and seeing some of the names that ended up in this book just by coincidence. But you can go visit them. They aren't moving anytime soon. And then I went off to Chicago to get my undergrad in business. Got my law degree at NIU. Who here is a Husky? Who is a Husky? Oh my goodness, we're short. Okay. Who are future Huskies now? But NIU Law School, graduated in 2018, and then in 2023 I started my own firm here in downtown Rockford, where I do the practice that I said. So I'm going to begin with the premise of what is this book? Okay, so it's Forest City Yester-Queer. Yes, Forest City Yester-Year. There's the pun. I love puns. This book started off as basically an essay. It was supposed to be a question, answering the question of what history do we have in Rockford that relates to the queer community. And that actually came from my work with the Rockford Area Pride Committee. And we had an issue with the Rockford Area Pride Committee. I'll get to that in a moment. The committee was founded by me and all that. And that issue was whether or not we were going to allow police to march in the Rockford Area Pride Parade. This is an issue that Pride Parade committees all across the nation have had to deal with. And when that issue came up, I can easily say it almost caused our committee to fall apart. There was a lot of debate over whether or not this issue should, the lines were drawn. And I asked the question, what's the history? Where do we come from? Why do people feel this way? Why do other people feel the other way? And that turned into a research project that went into creating the Rockford Area Pride Committee's statement and policy on police at Pride. You can read that statement. We adopted it our first year. We still stand by it. And that policy led me to realize there's a lot that we don't know. Just even on a local level, there's a lot that I don't know. And if there's one thing that I hope that you take from tonight is the fact that you should always be willing to change your mind. You should always be willing to look at history and say, I have either misperceived this or even more, I am wrong. And that is okay. Because learning from history includes the ability to not repeat those mistakes and even more to work proactively to try to right the wrongs that history has made. And that is what this book came from. This book is also a love letter to my city, my hometown. Cody and I do live in Belvedere. That's by coincidence. We bought our house because we fell in love. We fell in love with that house. But I do consider myself of and from Rockford still even to this day. And I would consider Belvedere to be Rockford next door. Adjacent.
Rockford metro area.
Rockford metropolitan area, yes, as defined by the Commerce Department, yes. So being from and of Rockford, this is a love letter to the city that helped raise me, changed my perspective. I went to high school, all the way up through to high school, was in Rockford. So I hope that you see that as the citizens of this area. I hope that you see yourselves in this history, because the events that happened in Rockford, that happened at a national level, are also the events that affected our community. And more importantly, we as Rockfordians had something to say. Every single issue. We talk about debating at the dinner table, and we're like, oh, these national policies, what can I do at a local level? And that's just it. You as a citizen have a voice and an opinion. And that brings us, there we go, to one of the first things I'd like to present. This is my favorite thing, because he's from Belvedere. See, but who knows who this is? Come on. Yeah, okay, yes. This is Albert DJ Cashier. Cody, how long was I obsessed with him?
You still are.
Basically. So, for those that don't know, this is a picture or two pictures of Albert DJ Cashier. Now, Albert Cashier, he's a little old. This is from the early 1900s, all the way back to about 1880, I want to say, 1864. So, Albert Cashier was a soldier of the Civil War, fought for the Union side, that is the anti-slavery side, fought for the Union and had many glorious battles. He was there when Grant went through Nashville, all of these great campaigns. And then Albert retired and went back to being, a laborer, would just work on farms, would work at various activities throughout, just to make a living. And then in the early 1900s, around 1910, Albert had an accident. More accurately, someone else was driving a vehicle, the rich guy, hits Albert Cashier. We aren't entirely sure what the accident entailed, but Albert gets injured and is examined by a doctor, and we find out that Albert doesn't have the necessary equipment to be considered male, unduly increased sex of the time. Yes, Albert was transgender. Albert, many books, many scholars will say that Albert was a woman who fought as a man. My argument to you tonight is Albert was transgender male. And the reason I say that is because Albert was putting on a male clothing, was identified as male, used he, him pronouns, far before the war, throughout the entire war, and then after the war, even to his death day, was buried in his Union uniform and refused to take she, her pronouns. In fact, when Albert was diagnosed with what they called insanity, what we would call dementia nowadays, Albert ended up at the Soldiers and Sailors Home in Quincy, Illinois. And at that time, they tried to put Albert in a dress. It was a mini Civil War. Albert hated it. And you can actually literally say that the dress is what killed him because he tripped one day, broke a bone, and never recovered. Dresses kill. So Albert Cashier, though, had this absolutely fantastic career. Not only being transgender, of course, belongs in a queer book, but the other thing is what's happening on a national level today. I have to emphasize that queer history, we've had our victories, okay? We've had the time where, marriage, our same-sex marriage equality in 2015 is one of our great legal victories. Many of our great moral victories are the statutes that protect us in employment. But transgender people are still under attack. They are persecuted, prosecuted, and even more, their history gets rewritten more than we would like. For instance, Albert's rest after he died, because again, the interest in Albert is always in retrospect, because nobody knew at the time, because he didn't bother to tell anybody, and it wasn't anybody's business. But in the retrospect, Albert died in the early 1913 or 1915, somewhere around there. In the 1950s was when scholarly work started to come out in the Belvedere Journal and the Illinois State Historical Journal. And they always put, Albert was a man. But if you go back to those contemporary things, such as when Albert was alive and people described him and talked about him, they always used the he, him pronouns. It wasn't until later that we had she, her being aggressively done. And one of the most egregious rewritings of history that you'll find with Albert is actually in the 1970s. Albert is lying right now in Sonneman, Illinois. Sonneman, Illinois, one of those small little Illinois towns you don't hear about until you go attend a little history lecture like today. You can visit Albert's grave and you will actually find two gravestones. The first one was right after he died, where it says Albert D.J. Cashier, Illinois 95th Regiment. That is the regiment that Albert fought under. There's a second one, in granite, from the 1970s. It says a name, and I will only say this name once just so that way you can find it. It is Jenny Hodgers. Born in Cloggerhead, Ireland, died Albert D.J. Cashier. Now here's the other thing about this. There's a podcast, if you haven't subscribed to it, it's called Queer as Fact. I recommend it. They got a copy of my book and they liked it. And they actually did a full episode on Albert. And they actually went to Ireland and checked the genealogical records. Guess what name does not appear in any of the genealogical records? That name. So, Steph, what was Albert? Do you remember what you called him to me that one night? Yeah, it's well, Steph is the one who I debated Albert Cashier with. You called him a little liar.
He's a liar.
He's a liar. Because the only name that we ever heard the name Jenny from was from Albert giving that name in the fits of dementia. But yet, people are so adverse, so antagonistic of trans people, that they will choose any name, even if it's a false name, rather than their given name. And they'll put it on your tombstone. That is the egregiousness of how trans people are persecuted, even to this day. And so that's why I do like how, in my book, I use he, him pronouns for Albert. That is what he preferred throughout his life. And more importantly, it does call out those people who are like, why were you using those pronouns? Because you didn't know Albert. And the really cool thing about Albert, though, because I do like to end on a good note, though. Albert, as a Union soldier, was allowed a pension. Okay, so who's heard of a pension? No, millennials, anybody? So for fighting for the Civil War, for fighting for the Union side of the Civil War, you got to have a pension for the rest of your life after you were disabled. Albert was disabled. Albert went to live in a soldiers' and sailors' home. They found out about Albert, and they tried to take it away, thinking that he was some bride who had given his husband the slip and, oh, you're collecting his pension. So what's really cool, and this is the nexus that's really cool, how many of you would ever announce on Facebook, I'm going away for 2 weeks to wherever, I look forward to seeing my family again? Anybody? Guess what you did in 1910 in the newspaper? Yeah, all the time. They would say, I'm going away, I'll be back on such and such a date. Because we didn't have Facebook, we didn't have texting. That was how you let the family and the friends know that you were gone and you were coming back. And so what happens is there was a person named Charles Ives, Lieutenant Charles Ives of the 95th Illinois Regiment, who was the lieutenant who commanded Albert and Yester-Queer. Along with a few others, you had Joyce, Hartman, I think was the name, and various other people who went to visit Albert at the Soldiers and Sailors Home. Now, there was a big newspaper article in the Quincy Daily Herald. Lieutenant Ives, war hero, is coming! Will be visiting our town. Come and meet him. And they hold this big spectacle. Nobody knows why we have been graced by the attendance of this person amongst us, but yet we are all overjoyed. Then you look in Albert's pension file, and you see deposition of Charles Ives. And in that deposition, Charles had visited Albert in the Soldiers and Sailors Home. And at that time, he interviews Albert, asking about the war, trying to figure out who this person is. And a little bit into the interview, all of a sudden, Albert looks at him in the eye, perks up, and says, "You're Lieutenant Ives." He recognized him. That deposition, along with others, meant that Albert got to keep his pension. What so many people don't do today is stand up for their trans siblings. And yet, all the way back in the early 1900s, late 1800s, early 1900s, you have people who said, I don't care. You are my friend, you are my colleague, you are the person I fought beside, and I'm going to fight for you. That's just inspiration, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that's Albert Cashier, and as I said at the beginning, I want this to be more interactive. Does anybody have any questions about Albert? Because he's a really cool guy. He's had a really cool career. Anything? Yes.
I've seen pictures of him at Midway Museum.
Indeed, Midway Village Museum. The other thing that this book is a love letter to our local history and our museums, because Midway Village was one of the first to actually have a display of Albert available for us to see, and we also have some historic records here. The big thing, though, and you might not know this, is Albert's flag, the 95th Illinois Regiment, is actually at the Boone County Museum. You can actually go see it when they have it on display. So recommend go see it. It's a little tattered, but it should be. All right.
So does the 95th Regiment have a museum or something?
I'm not sure if it has an actual museum. I mean, if you go to like Veterans Memorial Hall here. So a little bit of how a lot of this works. It's a little bit disjointed as to where things are, because the only connection that Rockford has directly to the 95th Regiment is what's called Camp Fuller. Camp Fuller was where the soldiers came and enlisted and then got shipped off to the Civil War. So Rockford was kind of the stopping depot, you could say. So there really isn't a 95th Regiment museum. However, most of the artifacts you're going to find in Belvedere, because they did regiments by where they enlisted from, not where they enlisted at. So it was made up of Belvedere, McHenry, and kind of those areas. And that's what became the 95th Regiment. Okay. I bored the PowerPoint. We'll get the kingdom on. Come on. Here we go. Okay.
Thank you.
I hope I'm not boring you, but apparently the PowerPoint. Okay. But yes, 95th Regiment, take a look at it. And the other thing, as they said on the podcast, podcasts, as you know, my book has a lot of footnotes, okay? As a lawyer, we have a saying. The saying is, it does not matter what I believe, it matters what I can prove. And that's what the footnote trail is. So if you want to look up more on the 95th Regiment, find a footnote, I welcome it. I welcome a letter to the editor. And by the way, my editor is over there, so write to them, not to me.
I'm not taking your complaints.
All right. Any other questions on Civil War, Albert Bashir there? Well, oh, yes, sir.
Are there other documented cases that are similar to this?
Yes and no. So none that have anybody living, transgender after the fact. Now, again, we may not know, okay, because it would not be something you publicized back in 1865. But we do have records of people who identified as women, female, and they went to fight, and then they were found out and sent home. A wonderful book. Again, I don't like it because it uses the pronouns problem, but They Fought Like Devils. Very good book. Again, footnote. Anything else on Albert Civil War? So, first thing you should learn from this, okay? Queer people have always existed. In other news, water remains wet. Or for those who are being philosophical, the sky is blue, it is not white, and yes, water is the thing making things wet, not wet, but whatever. Okay, my presentation. Trust me, you get a bunch of lawyers in a room, we do this. All right, so our next thing is in our early 1900s is Miss Kate O'Connor. All right, who knows Kate O'Connor? This one? Okay. Let's throw some facts. Amber, I got your notes. Tell me some facts about Kate.
Oh my gosh, don't put me on the spot right
Spirit
now. I am so hot.
Okay. So Kate O'Connor, born in the late 1800s, died at the end of, I can't remember if the war had actually gotten there, but 1945. So I think maybe 1945. Kate O'Connor, anybody under the age of 16, 14, Kate O'Connor was a badass. Okay? Okay, so this is someone who took gender norms and said, there's no window, I'm taking a wrecking ball. Okay? And that's Kate O'Connor. You'll notice in this photo right about here, what does she have that people don't accept at the time? It's very... No, that's... Suit! She wore a suit in 1930! 1930, we had someone who identifies as female wearing a suit. That would never have happened. To give you a couple of, just anecdotal things here. Okay? Practice of law. Women were not allowed to practice law with a license in Illinois until the 1970s. Let alone wear a suit. There were judges in the 1990s on the transcripts that I will not listen to a lawyer who is wearing pants and is not a man. On the transcript.
Well,
Yes.
was that a lawsuit that she was wearing?
Challenge accepted. Touche. So the thing is, though, but they had to wear skirts. You had to be modest. You had to be feminine. And that's one of those things that you'll see throughout our queer history is a lot of it is, abandoning femininity to try to, not even fit in, but just to say, I'm making my own path. That was what the symbol of masculinity is and was. I make my own path. And that is exactly what Kate O'Connor did. Let me introduce you to one of my favorite Rockfordians, okay? So as I said, Kate O'Connor, born in the late 1800s, died just around 1945. And Kate basically said, I'm going to do what I want to do. So she became we would call it realtor or real estate agent. She had a real estate brokerage here in Rockford. And she didn't just do that. Later on, she took that real estate brokerage and said, bye Rockford, I'm going to Chicago. And she did it back there. And then she started lending out to everybody. And so she became the equivalent of a banker, a mortgage specialist. She moved on to become basically a probate lawyer. A little bit, again, back on the practice of law. We didn't always have law licenses. You didn't always take an exam. It was literally you went before the court and you said, I want to practice law. And they would ask you questions, and then if you passed, you got, congratulations, you're a member of the bar. She never could do that because of the gender barrier, but you didn't need a license at the time. She just couldn't go before the court. So she handled probate matters and let the court stuff happen to those, finicky other people. That's what this person did. Kate, inspiration, okay? And the only thing that stopped Kate, sadly, was a heart attack. She was in Chicago at the time. She was trying to do a deal. And to quote the Rockford Morning Star, one of Rockford's most beloved stars dimmed this evening. Her body was returned. One difference here, so question about the book. So when you finish writing your first book, I hope all of you would do it if you feel so inclined. When you finish writing your first book, you will notice a lot of typos. Fix them. The second thing you will notice is that people come forward and say, oh, I have information for you. And I'm like, well, I asked you a year ago. But now I have this information. So one of those things, this is actually a mistake in the first edition that is corrected in the revised first edition, which is what I have printed now, is that Kate O'Connor is not buried in Greenwood Cemetery. She was actually, and I need to call Midway Village to tell them to correct that. She's actually buried at St. James and St. Mary Cemetery, which is right next door. Congratulations, Kate. But the other thing about Kate that is very, just to tell you kind of what this was, okay, so first of all, she was all of these wonderful business person, but she also fought for women's suffrage. Does anybody know where you can find a artistic representation of Kate in Rockford? No, Amber, you know. Yes?
Right by the YMCA.
Right by the YMCA. In fact, actually, can you see it from here?
No, you can't.
Anyway, so there is the Women of Rockford, the Women's Memorial there. Kate is there because she fought for women's suffrage. And she was also the first woman not only to serve on a jury, but to serve as foreman of the jury. Yes, this is what this woman was, I tell you. She bullied a bunch of guys and said, I'm going to be the foreman. Yes! Yes, inspiration, Kate O'Connor. Now, the peaches. Who knows the Rockford peaches? Come on, there we go. Yes, indeed. Anybody know how many are left?
Not many.
Yeah, exactly.
One just recently died.
Yes, of course. Yep. We're losing them. I guess that's what happens when you get old. But anyway, so the Rockford peaches, notable Rockford, yes. Notable Rockford baseball team from the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League, AAGPBL. Yes, that's a hard initiative, but that's what everybody calls it. So the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League. The thing that I want you to take from this is they, with mandated femininity for these women players, okay? They said you cannot go on dates. They said you must always be in makeup, ready for your portrait. You cannot have flirtations with each other. That's the thing about being queer in the past, before there was the open and the proud, the inner pride movement. It was the fact that you had to live within the margins, sadly, otherwise you'd be persecuted. There are a few cases in the AAGPBL archives about women who were lesbian, kicked off teams. Because you had to be the perfect eye candy for the men. That was your job. Many of them talk about how they hated wearing skirts, because have you ever tried to slide into first base in a skirt? Yeah, no, it's not pretty.
Weird places.
Mm-hmm. Yes, indeed. So, why do I bring up this?
I've seen the movie League of Their Own.
Indeed. Relatively accurate. I recommend going to the baseball website and books, but The League of Their Own is actually, I think, if I remember, it's based off the book. Read the book, read them in conjunction, because, of course, films they have to go to their audience, right?
The TV show is more openly queer than the movie.
Indeed, indeed. So, but again, get your information from historic sources. Dramatizations are good to pique your interest. Don't cite them. Okay? Doesn't matter what I believe, it matters what I can prove.
Andrew, I just came over from Portman's gallery, and I have this. There's a women's tournament in Rockford. They are doing an opening show. It's called Amazons of the Diamonds. I'm just going to refer this to you. The dates given were July 17th opening to September 30th. If anyone's interested, there will be an artist that's celebrating the Rockford beaches and other things going on. Just
Perfect.
kind of talk about timing, right?
Exactly, yes indeed. Please, see all of your local events. Rockford has a bunch of hidden gems. Continuing on with the beach though, why would okay, yeah, they had to be feminine, all right? Yes, we had the queer bug too in baseball. There's gotta be a quote in there somewhere. Anyway, so, Jean Chione is the one I was able to verify and find. Jean Chione was a pitcher for our lovely Rockford Peaches and had a stellar career. Absolutely, had a couple knockout games, all those wonderful things. Anybody attend Guilford High School? Anybody attend Guilford High School? They are
1998.
Okay, so she did it in the 1970s to 80s to early 90s. There we go. If you knew the PE teacher named Miss Chione, that was her. And nobody knew because she never said to anybody, oh yeah, I was a Rockford Peach. It never came up. And yet, in her golden years, she moved up to Spokane with her lifetime partner. They've been together for years. And when she died, and this is the big difference, the baseball league said, you cannot have flirtations, you cannot be open. In her obituary it said, surrounded by her family and her lifelong partner. That's the difference here. We can live openly, we can live as our true selves. And that's the really cool thing about Jean Chione and the Peaches. Probably a name that might have a few heads turning here, Maybelle Blair. Anybody know Maybelle Blair? Okay, there we go, a few more, I would hope. Maybelle Blair is our most recognizable of the still living icons of that era. She wasn't a Peach, she was actually with the Peoria Red Wings and one other team. But what makes her important is the International Women's Baseball Center in Rockford. You may have heard that we're trying to revitalize women's baseball throughout the nation, but the cradle of women's baseball is in Rockford. And Maybelle Blair has been quintessential in making sure that Rockford is recognized. And so that's why she has a brief intro in my book, even though she's not of Rockford, she finds Rockford important. Who saw the TV series A League of Their Own by Amazon, right? Maybelle Blair wanted the second season to be filmed in Rockford. She fought for that. Netflix turned her down. But that's how important Rockford was to her. And if you read the book that just came out, maybe it was 2 years ago, she talks about how Rockford is special to her heart. And that's why she is included in the book. Any questions about baseball, other than I don't know the rules? Yes?
What was the name of the book that you just talked about?
A League of Their Own. Oh, Maybelle Blair, hang on. Amber, can you help me on this
Written
one?
by Cat Williams.
That helped us a little. We can narrow it down, but she's written a few books.
Ask Amber after this is over. She can look it up in the library computer for you.
Yeah.
Ditto. Okay. There we go. All right, continuing on. So, what is a safe space? Anybody got a definition? I'm curious. What do you consider a safe space, and we'll keep it to the clear definition?
A safe space is where you feel safe, like a gay bar or something like that?
Indeed, indeed. The safe spaces, I once saw on the internet a sign that I found very important. It said, you are entering upon a queer establishment. Know that you are a guest of the queer community. And I like how that is defining what a safe space is. It's when straight people and non-neurospicy people, the neuro, whatever they call them.
The neurodivergent.
No, the other ones. The neurotypical, thank you. The neurotypicals are our guests. They are subject to our rules. They are subject to our invitation. That is what a safe space is. And here's the reason why I'll get to just go ahead.
I'm a gay male who has ADHD and autism.
Indeed.
Yes.
Yep. Indeed. And so, a safe space, again, you have to give a definition before you say what was this space in the book. Because there's safe space and then there's friendly spaces. Okay? Friendly spaces are those spaces where you are not a guest of the queer community, you are a guest of the straight community, we are just tolerating you. Okay? Big difference, right? Just one change. So where are these safe spaces? Show of hands, who thinks that the number at its peak, Rockford had more than 3 gay bars? At its peak, Rockford had more than 3 gay bars. I have 1, I have 2, I have 3. The rest of you are wrong. Rockford had 4. There's a reason I chose 3, right? Okay. Rockford had 4 gay bars going at one time in the mid-1980s, early to mid-1980s, okay? And the gay bars were those safe spaces. They were where the queer community had established an economic place, and that was also where they had established that if something happens, you can go here. Now, there are a couple, I have to give the caveat of they're hard to find because they were not publicized. You did not put in the Rockford Register Star, queer people welcome! In fact, in the 1970s, the police said, we wish we didn't have gay bars in Rockford. Thank you to Norm for sharing that with me, actually. Norm Knott, who knows Norm Knott? So, thank you. Yes, thank you. So, Norm was actually one of the people who sat down with me. I'll tell you a little bit more about the interviews in a moment. And he showed me a newspaper clipping from the Rockford Labor News, which is a publication that just ended, I think, in 2012 or 13. And you can also go through the library. Their archives are all here. But at that time, the police said we would prefer there not be queer establishments in Rockford. Meanwhile, Rockford hit high murder rates and all those wonderful things as the industrial decline of the 1970s with globalization, and again in 2007, 2008 with the incoming Great Recession. But our problem is the queers, right? So, I will let the book tell the story, but I want to put a name out there for you to look at, and it is Ethel Mermer. In those safe spaces, you had drag. That was your chance to express yourself. We have a few drag performers in the audience, and this is where you get to express yourself. These are the places where you could sit and be yourself. Or not, you could dance around in various states of undress. But the really cool thing about Ethel Mermer was not just a drag queen. They were also a community advocate. And one of my favorite stories is that they were sitting in the bar in one of these safe spaces, and the police decided this was their time to enter upon the establishment, not to arrest anybody, but to show dominance and all that. And Ethel, who had just finished a performance, comes down from the stage and sits down, and is putting on this lovely act of, oh my goodness, I can't find what I need to find, and immediately opens their bag and starts pulling out the things, looking for it. I will let you read the book to figure out what is in a drag queen's purse. Yes, it is most entertaining. All right. Big names that you would want to look at if you wish to continue the research, and I welcome you to write for City Yester-Queer 2, which is Bogart's. Anybody eat at Bogart's in the older crowd? There we are. Yep, fine dining establishment, also gay bar, right? Nice. All right. You also had Seventh Heaven. Did anybody go Seventh Heaven? There we go. Yes, indeed. Seventh Heaven. Guess what street that was on? Yes, 7th Street. What's really cool, in a nice roundabout way, if you've ever visited the Liam Foundation headquarters, which is at the 5th Street and 5th and 6th, whatever that is, that intersection, that is actually right in Midtown Rockford. Guess where all those safe spaces were? Midtown Rockford.
I've been to Leon already.
Wonderful. Everybody should go. It is a wonderful, wonderful community center for it all. But they're right in the heart of where all of these queer safe spaces were. The Seventh Heaven, Bogart's. I'm drawing a blank on what the third one was because Rockford had many. But Mr. C's, thank you. Andrew, read your book. What's the Mr. C's Cocktail Lounge, all those. Now, here's what's really cool about all of this. Rockford had safe spaces. Did you know Rockford had a gay newspaper? Yeah. Guess who was an editor for it? Yes, okay. If you ever wonder if someone is a hoarder or a librarian,
What's the difference?
This is the difference, okay? A hoarder, wants to collect. A librarian realizes that history is so, it stands on a knife's edge of whether or not it is preserved or not. There's only one known copy in existence right now of the original papers of the Rock River News, which was the gay newspaper. It is down at NIU in their collection. Quick sidebar, again, went to law school. That's how I know one of the librarians at NIU. He actually used to be my next door neighbor. We became friends, don't know why, but we ended up talking. And I just emailed him one day because I saw in the catalog Rock River News because I was doing a Google search because Norm had told me about this. And I'm like, please tell me there's something because it's not in the Library of Congress anymore from what I can understand. It wasn't in our local library for whatever reason. And I went and I talked to my old friend. I'm like, oh, you're the person who donated this. Tell me more. And he said, I just happened to meet the guy who owned it. What was it, Steve, was it?
Steve Wheeler.
Steve Wheeler. I met Steve Wheeler. He was starting this newspaper in the 1990s. And I said, just add me to your mailing list. Every month for 6 years, he took it and he put it in a folder. And that is why there's one copy in existence. Now, I'm going to buff myself up for a moment because I did all of you a service here. I went down to NIU and I spent hours copying them for you so you can find them here. That was joke ego. on that knife's edge had he decided it's not important. And that's the quote he gave me. He said, "We don't know what's important." So my ask of you, and this is at the very end where I give all the acknowledgments and ask you, hey, as a reader, what do I hope you get from this book? It's this. If you belong to a queer organization, if you are affiliated with the queer community in any way, and a little piece of liminal history comes your way, preserve it until you know it's been preserved somewhere else. Every newsletter that comes out, that's a little piece of what was happening. Does anybody know the name of an organization called Diversity? Has anyone heard of Diversity? Okay. I didn't know you knew about that, Tom. Or Bob. You knew about it? We're going to talk about it. Acquired family. So, you didn't tell me about it. So, Diversity was an organization in the mid-2000s, or late 1990s into the mid-2010s. And what this organization did is it did a lot of what Liam Foundation is trying to do and continuing to do, which is to uplift the queer community. They actually had a transgender support group for both teens and adults. They took care of queer elders, all of this wonderful thing. The thing that killed them, as can be expected, was the recession. 2008, by 2013, they just couldn't keep operating. But if you go out over to 3rd Street, you may have noticed a mural where it's got people with, a very diverse crowd with rainbow fans and all that. That mural is on Diversity's old headquarters. How fitting, right? So thank you, Rockford Area Arts Council. But the reason I bring up Diversity is they had a monthly newsletter. And boy, was it dramatic. So you literally had the newspaper team quit every few years, and then would come back and say, "We're sorry." You would literally have the executive committee going, "Oh, we need to talk about this," and the newsletter committee said, "They want us to talk about this, but we're not going to." I know. We do things great when we're in the queer community, right? So, and again, those newsletters, they seem so, okay, I've gotten my news, I can throw this away. But the only reason it was found is because there was an estate sale. I can't remember the guy's name, but he moved away. But he had kept all of them. Hoarder or librarian, I'll let you decide. But he kept all of them. And then they ended up here in the library. That's what I'm talking about when it comes to preserve your history. Find it. And the really cool thing is most of us have a Google Drive or OneDrive or something. It's very easy because everything's digital. Save it. And then what you can do is you can learn from that history and see what was happening. Because the national issues that hit Rockford are the same issues that we are debating today, just with a different clothing. And the other side is the national issues that we all can talk about are a part of our local community. For instance, just very briefly right now, data centers. Yeah. It's not just outside of Rockford. There are proposals here. Regardless of where you stand, be active, understand what the news is trying to tell us. But what's really cool about the Rock River News, and I recommend, again, take a look at some of the articles, but the really cool thing is they have pictures. They have pictures. And one of the best pictures I ever saw was the first time queer people marched in a pride parade. Those of you that have listened to the podcast are not allowed to answer this. Those of you who have read the book, I will allow it because that means you have read my book. What was the first year that queer people in Rockford marched in a parade? Not a pride parade, a parade.
4th of July.
What year?
Got me on that.
Okay, any guesses? 4th of July? Who thinks it was the 1980s? Who thinks it was the 1990s? Who thinks it was the 2000s? Who thinks it was the 2010s? It was 1992. 1992, a bunch of queer people said, we are done. We don't think we can do a pride parade, but we are going to march in a parade in Rockford. And so they put in for the July 4th parade. They turned in their paperwork. They created a banner. And then our beloved leader, Joe Marino, said, no, you cannot use the word gay. Because the organization that they wanted to march under was called Lesbian and Gay Resources and Social Services, LeGrasse. Rockford's not known for good names. But LeGrasse, Lesbian and Gay Resources and Social Services. That was considered, quote, too political to march in the 4th of July parade. Meanwhile, the pro-life and pro-choice groups, that's not a political issue, right? Go ahead, march. So, in protest, because they said you can march, but you cannot use your name, they took black tape and they censored their banner and they marched anyway. That's the queer community, I said. But that's what I'm talking about. When you are faced with adversity, there's another torpedo, or another quote that I absolutely love to say from the Civil War. Again, I'm going to swear, sorry. Damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead. That is what we have to do, and that is what they did in 1992. And the only record of it that you will find is in the Rockford Register-Star, which is a great record to find things, but in the Rock River News, because that's the only one that has pictures. You can look at the picture of the censored banner. It actually happened. We walk in the footsteps of history every single day. Rockford's first Pride Parade is just the next chapter of what was happening back then. I think I'm going to move on because I accidentally got a little ahead of myself. Okay, so how much time do I have? I see I am over by 10 minutes. Does anybody mind if I continue for another 2 to 3 minutes, and then we'll close it, because I do want to take you through the exhibit, okay? So I'm going to take my glasses off because I get teary-eyed. So who attended Rockford's first Pride Parade? You better jump. You were there. Indeed, yeah. You better raise your hand. Rockford's first official. I now tell you why it is not official with the 1992, but also Rockford, what they used to do is they didn't get a permit. They didn't, the people did not just have a parade. What they did is they lined up in their cars and they drove down State Street on Pride Month anyway. Yes, there are stoplights, but we're queer. We don't have to drive well. So what happens then is in 2023, there were the Talcott Library protests. And I want to say to the librarians in this room, you have a wonderful place in this community, and the attacks that have happened on you in the last few years are totally unjustified. You are just trying to bring information. You are bringing love to this community. In 2023, up at Talcott Library, which is up north in Rockton, there was the Teen Advisory Group. And what they wanted to do is they wanted to host a drag queen question and answer session. It was not a story time. It was not involving young kids. It was the teen group for them to ask questions. What is it like to be a drag queen? How do I get started? Can you give me makeup tips? Stuff like that. Crystal Ball was the drag queen who was enlisted to do this, and they put the event out. The Rockford Family Initiative, notice Rockford, statements not endorsed by the library, but boo! Rockford Family Initiative decided that they were now the Rockton Family Initiative, and went up there anyway, and they brought, I just recalled this, and I found it in a picture, they brought in Moms for America, or whatever, Moms for Liberty, yes, boo! And they brought in banners, and they staged a protest. They started picketing the Talcott Library on the street. And so what happens is it came to head at a board meeting, and the weather was a lot like this. It came to head at a board meeting. And what happened is at the board meeting, you had on one side, literally one side, you had Rockford Family Initiative, but then this other group, Rockton Pride, which had formed in the basis of maybe a week, not even. This group came together, this group of people said, we're defending our library, we are here to enhance the lives of people, so we're going to advocate. And they formed overnight, and they staged a counter-protest. And so we went, and I say we, I was there. So we went into this park, and we had a lovely party. We learned from various people. Phyllis, who's in the audience here, talks about peaceful protest, what it meant to be, what this means for us. And then we learned the protesters were blocking the door. We could not get in. In Illinois, meetings of public bodies must be public, meaning they must allow everybody to come in. And these people were trying to make it so our side could not get in. So we actually had to stop our pre-gathering, and we had to march. And there's a lovely picture of Jessica Green and Kelly Kulak there. There's another picture, which you can again look at the library because it was donated, or at Midway Village, of them holding up the banners as they lead this group of people down. We come up to the police, and the police are like, we know what you're doing, blah, blah, blah. And they said, would you like to walk in the street? So the police blocked off the street. And I consider that Rockton's first Pride Parade. Yeah, because it was a protest. And so we marched down there, and they're still blocking the door. This line was the line of demarcation, and there the two shall meet. So they open the doors to this public meeting. Of course the bigots say, we're going to go in, but you can't follow us. They had to open up a side door. And that was how our side got in to be heard. And I can't remember what the final tally was, but we won! So much.
It was 6-2.
6-2 in favor of having this event. However, the Rockford
I'm
Freeway...
sorry, 42, because there were only 6 members.
42. I won't tell if you don't. 4-2 on this vote. And what then happened, what I consider sad, they still kept ticketing. They would not stop until the library had to move the event online. And they made such a show. We moved it online, now we need to force them to cancel it. Thank you for not doing that. Thank you for not doing that. And that was what eventually led to me forming Rockford Area Pride Committee and getting Rockford's first official Pride Parade going. And that's chapter 8 of the book, is that entire story. At least from my perspective, it is a memoir. But that's where the book ends, on a victory note of Rockford's first official Pride Parade. Let's see, do I have any other pictures here? Oh yes, there it is, that's what we got. So this is actually year 2, and this was year 3. We've had 3 so far, and I would encourage you all to come. It will always be on the first Saturday of June. Anybody been to Chicago Pride by any chance? Yes, go if you can. Thousands of people all around you just celebrating, the queer experience. But you get to begin in Rockford at the first Saturday, and you can end on the last Sunday in Chicago. It's like, and also for those who are wondering, do I really want to go to a Pride Parade? Rockford is an excellent first Pride Parade. It's low key. We have a no nudity policy. We try. And it's a great time for everyone. So, yes?
I was also going to say, for people that are anxious, if they are concerned about doing the physical attendance at Pride, for the last 2 years we were able to have a personal friend of mine, a streamer, was able to do online service, so there was online attendance for Rockford area Pride and Pride as well.
So please come as you are able. I believe that ends my official talking. I would like to show everybody kind of the exhibits a little bit if you get, because many of these are personal to me, and also I found some cool stuff that I didn't know about. So starting here on your left, my right, this exhibit is basically the Rockford, these 2 here are the Rockford Area Pride Parade first year exhibits. So, Cody, do you want to talk about the Chronicle?
Yeah.
So the Chronicle, excuse me, so we have 3 symbols of Rockford Area Pride Committee that we use to represent our motto, which is celebrate, remember, unite. For celebration, we have the bell, I'll explain that in a moment. For unite, we have the torch, and for remember, which again, historic, we have what was once called the storybook, is now called the Chronicle.
So with the Chronicle, lovingly, my husband comes to me, it's like 11 o'clock at night. Hey, can you do art? Can you draw like something in like a medieval manuscript style? Yeah, sure, yeah. Next day walks in and hands me this giant.
I have express delivery on Etsy.
Yeah, this was literally, I'm like, oh, I'm thinking like maybe like an 8.5 by 11. No, it's this giant leather-bound tome. I'm like, okay. So the Chronicle book is, originally he wanted this like, oh, I want a record, I want it to be an art piece. And then as I started working on it, I was incorporating symbols, not only of just like queer identity, but also the Black community, talking about trans lives, talking about the roots of our movement at Stonewall. And so if you look at just this first page here, every piece of it, the colors are intentional, the line work, the names, the writing, all of it are different symbols that relate to not only the first parade that happened in Rockford, but also the origins of our movement. And then I took special care also with every year to touch about conflicts that are happening globally. So in the center script, in the blue line in the center, as well as on the bottom, if you can catch the light right, there is a silver cipher script. In the center it says, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. And at the bottom it says, freedom for one, freedom for all, freedom for all. Because there is no pride in genocide. If you can attack one marginalized group, you can attack any marginalized group. And so the whole purpose of this is to record what we did as, the Rockford Area Pride Committee, but also as a community, to see who was involved and to record our history and our ancestors, that 50 years from now, 100 years from now, I'm not here, we're not here. We matter, we did something, we existed, and that is not a myth.
invite the community, if you make your way to Maze Books, you can sign this and be a part of the full record of the parade as years go by. Also, it was kind of fun. Our first Pride Parade was actually June 1st. It rained, but June 1st. And at the same time, over the United States Capitol, a flag was flown in honor of our first Pride Parade. It was donated by Congressman Eric Sorensen, and we have that on display as well. In this case, we have the torch and the bell. So each of these has a symbol. Of course, the chronicle is remembering the history. We also have the torch, which is the Unity torch. It's kind of funny because it's actually from the 1984 Olympics. And I handed it off to two people and I said, "Can you make it gay, please?" And they did, like with the ribbons and everything. And it symbolizes, the unity, the passing of the torch from one generation to the other. Josh Knecht, one of the original committee members, did the ribbons, and Eden Brown over at the Liam Foundation did the flame there. And then we have the bell. Guess what my hyperfixation is? Yes.
Bell, 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 bell.
Yes! There's actually a book I cite in my book called Bells, Bells, Bells. Yes. It's great. So bells have been used throughout history to mark special occasions, and what do? They get your attention. As I said, I'm a lawyer, so I have been somewhat fiscally blessed from time to time, and so Cody and I were able to donate this, and the words on the plaque say, "Let pride ring out for all to hear," because we must always remember that pride should never be silent.
Is that a train bell?
It is. It is a replica antique railroad bell. You and I are going to get along fine. Indeed. If it weren't in a glass case, everybody would have a chance to ring it, but the library's available. These are some of the original, or I should say, the scans of the Rock River News. So please take a look at some of them. The pictures from 1992, they're actually in the one here. We have a few of the diversity newsletters, and also understanding that Rockford has never been isolated as a queer community. So some of those newsletters are like, why are these from Montana? It's because the queer community collected these. They said, we need to know what's going on. The first Rockford Pride movements in the 1990s, all of that stemmed from people who saw what was happening at a national stage and wanted to replicate it here. Tom, can I call you out for a place that you visited? Mm-hmm. You were in New York at one time. May I call you out as to where you were? I'm going to.
Stonewall?
Yes.
Yeah.
Tom actually has been to Stonewall Inn before the riots. Yes! Over here, you'll see some of the landmarks of Rockford. It's the Rockford City Pride Lights. So see what gets lit up during Pride Month. Skipping around the back, you see some just more community artifacts, more of the lights. And then finally over here, Amber, can you tell me what's over there? Because I can't hear.
So we're going to have pictures, a t-shirt from Rockford's Pride Walk in 2011. We have pictures of our Pride mural that's on the corner of 3rd and State-ish around there. We have pictures from the first Rockford Pride Fest from 2012. I was there. I volunteered at the Civil Union gazebo, so that was very wonderful. So please come check out. That was our first Pride Fest. We also have information on diversity, that organization Andrew was talking about, and then the Liam Foundation and Fleet Flag Rockford, as well as when the mayor first did the proclamation of Pride Month in 2019. We have that proclamation here, and a photo of some folks who are here tonight, like Phyllis, Kurt, myself, Patrick, standing up and receiving that proclamation from the mayor. So make sure you go around and see some of the exhibits, because they will be gone like tomorrow.
So to end the evening, I hope you've had a little bit of a fun trip throughout history. I'd welcome a question and answer session in just a second. But if there's one thing I can impose upon you, do not let history be forgotten. Your perspective in history is one valid, but more importantly, deserves to be preserved. Each one of you has a unique experience on this earth. And that's pretty cool. We get to share it with each other. So thank you for sharing your time with me this evening. Please see the exhibits. I will be over in the local history signing books. I am told that by the library I cannot sell them, but for a mandatory donation of $14 to feed our starving lawyers fund, I am happy to reimburse you with a copy. Any questions before we get around to letting everybody move about? Do you think you had a question?
A statement you should be remiss about the corner.
The what?
About the corner.
Oh,
Yes.
oh my goodness, how can I forget? Okay, we have members here of the Forest City Rainbow Chorus, Rockford's queer chorus. Our next our next concert is October 11th, which is going to be at the Unitarian Universalist Church. Please join us. How's that for publicity? Okay.
I was just gonna say the one thing, and like, so if you read and just finished the book, is excellent, and thank you Kurt and Norm for connecting and with all those people for oral history interviews.
Yes, thank you, Kurt.
Incredible.
Thank you. Yes.
You know what, guys, I have a certain part of this history, but I think it's commendable that Andrew is taking, again, a certain personal risk and also a time and effort to research and archive this, a lot of moving parts in this. And I have to say that sometimes on a bad day, I say I live in Rockford, and I get this like such a provincial hellpit, you know? Anyone can you relate to that?
Yeah.
And then you know, the histories that go back and forth, we all have a little, you know, central piece of that. I got the book the first day I got it at a pride parade downtown, and I read it that night. I have to say, we need to stand up on this guy and commendably say that what a brave, what an honest effort, and this is something that really needs to go forward. Okay?